Next, we'll get started with questions. Evan Bland.
Well, uh, I'm just kind of curious, just real generally speaking, what's something about this team that you still have yet to learn, or that we still have yet to learn halfway through this season?
Wow, that's a good a stumper right there. I don't know. I don't something that you haven't learned. Um, yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know how to answer that one. I think the team that you've seen is the team that we've seen since they've stepped foot on campus. Honestly, the solid defense, the energy that they play with, the passion, the strike throwing on the mound. I mean, those are all things that we've seen since September. Honestly, when we started fall practice, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good sign where what you see is what you get with the team. It's not necessarily that there's something being held back or we just haven't quite done this yet. I think honestly with this team. They just show up every day and they're the same. They're the same team. So I think that's a good quality to have, to be consistent. We've had the same starting rotation all year. Those are guys that we thought would probably be in our rotation. The guys have stepped up in the bullpen are guys that we thought would be pretty good bullpen arms for us. And like I said, now we've kind of settled on the top six in the order for the most part. Again, you kind of hope to have that type of consistency with a team where you don't necessarily say, man, just wait until this starts happening. I think with this group, they've been the same team ever since we started back in September. Now, certainly we've gotten better in some areas, and we've come a long way in others, but I think it's just a consistent group of guys that show up ready to compete every day.
How common is that in your coaching experience, that a team has been what it is from the beginning and has kind of stayed that way?
Very uncommon. I mean, that's something that just never happens, honestly, where it takes guys a while to kind of get going at times, whether it be the freshmen. But honestly, with this group of freshmen that we've had that have contributed this year, they've shown the ability to do these type of things, honestly, since day one. And with our veterans, we knew what we were getting with all those guys. Even though we didn't have designated captains at the beginning of the fall, it was very clear of who our team leaders were. I think everybody could kind of point to, who the guys they thought would be rotation type guys for us. So it just doesn't happen very often where you feel like you've kind of got a pretty good idea, especially when you've got as many newcomers as you have. Sometimes it takes a while to mesh, the new faces with the guys that have been here before. But again, I think just the testament of our older players and our leaders where they just, hey, let's go, let's do this, we're all in this together. This is what we're trying to get accomplished, and it doesn't matter how old you are, where you come from, what your experience level is. We're all here to just get the job done.
Chris Bassinet.
Hey, Will, for the guys that maybe don't play as much or haven't played a lot at all this year, how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them ready? And I know you talk about next man up and things like that, but how do you keep those guys ready, to stay in it and stay with the rest of the guys that are playing a lot?
Yeah, it does make it difficult this year with kind of how everything played out. Usually you use the first 2 or 3 weeks of non-conference play to get a feel for your team and get some guys maybe their first collegiate at-bats or innings. And then the midweek games are obviously big for that too. So, yeah, not having that stuff, we just really had to pare it down a lot earlier, honestly. And I alluded to that before the season started. We just didn't really have the opportunity to put a guy on the mound that we just weren't quite sure if he's going to throw strikes, or to put a guy in a situation in a game where we weren't quite sure if he knew the signs or if he knew, exactly the situation on the bases and that type of stuff. So we try to get those things done in the midweek with scrimmages. We had one yesterday. We've had one each week since the season started. And those are important. I mean, those are development pieces right there where we've got, I was looking at our stats the other day from the midweek stuff. We have guys that have 25 or 30 at-bats in those type situations. So we're at least getting some of that done. And with the guys on the mound, we've seen some guys. Ethan Bradford got a chance to throw this past weekend based on what he had done on Tuesdays. So using those chances there on the midweek, even if it's just an inter squad situation to get guys chances. But as far as keeping guys engaged, I think just having a team that is consistently winning helps a lot, honestly, just where you feel like you're just contributing in some way, shape, or form. And it could be something small, whether it be a freshman that's keeping track of the grit plays in the dugout, or it's somebody that's keeping the chart, the opponent's pitching chart in the dugout, helping the team out. It could be pitchers that are just picking up on stuff that could help the hitters. Maybe it's a tell, maybe it's something that they're just seeing from the pitcher. So again, you have a good culture of team play that breeds itself, and the guys that aren't necessarily playing still feel like they're part of it.
You mentioned Ethan, and that was one of the guys I wanted to talk about. Have you been pleased with how the guys have responded when they've gotten opportunities like that, like Ethan got this last weekend?
For sure, and he earned that opportunity. Like I said, it wasn't just we'll go ahead and give this to him right here, because he earned that spot. I mean, and you can ask anybody on our team, his demeanor the last 2.5 weeks on the mound when he's done the live stuff has flipped. It's been a 180 where he's trusting what he's doing, and he's left-hander that can run the ball up to 92 miles an hour with a pretty good breaking ball and changeup. So, with him, it was just a matter of trusting his stuff and his ability. When he was able to flip that switch in practice, it was like, okay, we'll give you an opportunity in the game. And it was good to see. He walked the first guy on a 3-2 count, kind of lost him. And maybe in the past it would be, a rough outing for him. But he was able to just use that, what he had kind of learned, and his ability to change his mental mindset to get through that inning and look good doing it.
Cole Peterson.
Hey, Will, I guess kind of same topic, but what are just your overall thoughts on the bullpen? And then more specifically, Jake coming out of the bullpen, what kind of energy and dynamic has he brought in? Obviously, he was a starter through the first couple of weeks. What has he brought into the bullpen this season?
Yeah, I think our bullpen, we're starting to settle into a little bit more defined roles at times. But Jake in particular has given us a pretty good jolt of energy, as you said, just in the back part of the game. I mean, he's not scared. He's not going to be timid. He's coming at you with 93, 94 from the left side. It's already a tough fastball to hit because he hides it, and just gets a lot of swing and miss. And he's been in some big spots, and he's just very competitive. Again, it just goes back to not being scared, timid, nervous, any of those things. I mean, he's just in straight compete mode when he comes out there. So he's given us, you feel like if the starter can give you a quality start, and then you hand the ball off to some of those guys out of the bullpen. I mean, Cam Wynn has done a nice job coming out and getting us off the field in a lot of spots. I mean, he's a mid-90s arm with a really good slider. Then you throw in a lefty like Buns that's, low to mid-90s. And then you've got Schwelle coming out of the pen, not out of the pen, coming from shortstop with mid to upper 90s, throwing strikes. And that's the thing that all those guys have done a pretty good job of is attacking the strike zone.
Michael Brooks.
Well, a quick big picture question. What do you kind of make of the one-time transfer thing that passed last week, and how do you kind of see that affecting baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the day when that was the norm in college baseball, the one-time transfer. Again, I think it just as collegiate sports become more and more like a business, it is what it is. It's not personal. I guess, guys are looking for the best situation, and you can take advantage of the transfer market at times to add experience to your roster, but I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily something that year in and year out that we're just going to we definitely are not going to build your team around it. But it's something that, we've seen it, and it's helped our team this year with guys that have really helped out of the transfer portal. So, again, I think the things you run into potentially is just you want to make sure it's done ethically when it comes to the transfers, that teams aren't tampering with other teams' players, going through back channels, other avenues to try to say, well, you thinking about, transferring for next year. So, but again, it is what it is, in this day and age of athletics, and it's fine. I mean, it's becomes a little bit more and more like a business. And if guys feel like they can better their opportunities somewhere else, I'm sure we'll be on the receiving end of that at times as well.
Kind of going back to the bullpen conversation too, with Spencer, I know you guys were kind of cautious with him earlier in the year with kind of how you're using him and when. At this point in the season, I mean, is he multiple times a weekend, multiple innings type guy now, or I guess how are you kind of approaching his use as you kind of get later in the season now?
Well, we have used him a couple times now, twice on the weekend, and we've used him now multiple inning saves. I guess probably that was Sunday was at least his second. Well, maybe not even a save situation necessarily for the others, but I think he's thrown 2 innings or more now, maybe 3 times. I would have been willing to go to him in the 7th inning on Sunday if that's where the save was. And he hadn't thrown yet on the weekend, so he was still fresh. Honestly, he wants the ball in his hand with us a chance to win the game. Our team does. We feel super confident with him on the mound that he's going to get the job done, and there's zero doubt in anybody's mind that that's going to happen. So I guess to answer your question, as long as he fills up to it, we'd be willing to give him the ball as much as we can on the weekend. So if that's 3 days in a row for short stints, that's what it is. If it's 2 days of 1 inning at a time, that's what it is. But again, I think if you start to look, you get more and more information about his outings. He doesn't throw a lot of pitches. I mean, he's on attack and he throws strikes. So his 2 inning save, he threw 20 pitches and 17 strikes. That's just pretty much unheard of when it comes to college closers. So, I mean, a 40 pitch save could potentially be 3 innings. I mean, it just. He's building his arm strength up. I know he has bounced back better and better each week and feeling better and better each week after he pitches. So, again, he wants to win, and he's going to take the ball and more often than not to give us a chance to win.
All right, last one for Coach Bolt, Evan Bland.
Well, I'll just ask you about Michigan State. What stands out about them and what challenge is ahead for this weekend?
I would say team speed stands out with them. They're not necessarily a team that's going to hit a lot of home runs. They do hit a lot of doubles, but a lot of guys that can run. They're left-handed at the plate. Guys, I mean, we're talking getting down the line with pretty plus speed, and they put the ball in play. So it's going to be a challenge for us defensively to make sure that we're on our toes. And that we're ready to field the ball and play catch at a high level. They're going to bunt at times and try to create some offense and run the bases well. And they got a good catcher. They hold runners well. Probably not going to be a lot of free bases that way. Stuff that you may not think about when it's maybe not be an error that shows up, but it's a wild pitch that gives you an extra base. They haven't done a lot of that. Their catcher has been very good at keeping balls in front of him. Like I said, he's thrown guys out on the bases. They do a good job on the mound of controlling the running game. So that's something that we like to do. We're not going to change our game, but we also need to make sure that we're ready to cash in on some of those opportunities where runner at third, less than 2 outs, you don't have to have a hit. Just put the ball in play. And they're pretty young offensively, and they've played a variety of different guys, but they've got a couple of veterans on the mound that have been really good. They've got a couple of freshmen that they've thrown in there. So, again, I say it every week, but we got to play well if we want to win. I mean, we've last weekend was true testament to that. I mean, we're in the 8th inning losing on Friday. That series can look totally different if you don't find a way to win that game. We grab that momentum late in that game, carries into the next day. You look up and you got to sweep. So we've got to play well. We've got to come out ready to compete at a high level on Friday, and then just go from there.
Okay, that's it for Coach Bolt. Got Jackson Hallmark here. Just a second.